The Electoral Act Amendment Bill has been laid in both the Senate and the House of Representatives ahead of the clause-by-clause consideration and passage today. Chairman of the Senate Committee on INEC, Kabiru Gaya, while speaking exclusively with Haraz News, says the legislation will repeal and enact the 2010 Electoral Act, which has been under consideration for years. He also spoke on the transmission of election results through electronic means in Clause 50, subsection 2 of the draft bill that has now become controversial.
That the Senate do receive the report of Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021 SB 122. I so move, Mr. President.
Meanwhile, Senate President Ahmed Lawan says he has received more than 900 text messages in one day over allegations of tampering with the Electoral Act Amendment draft bill. Lawan described those accusing the leaders of the National Assembly of removing electronic transmission of results from the report as mischievous and rabble-rousers. Civil society organization had last week alleged that the final copy of the electoral bill did not represent the interests of Nigerians. The other reports later said that the section had been reintroduced by a public uproar.
Of those accusing the leadership of the National Assembly are misinformed, innocent. Some are simply mischievous and rabble-rousers. This is the first time this report is laid here. And this report of the committee, this is the decision of the committee on INEC, and therefore whatever will be discussed or considered about the Electoral Act Amendment Bill will be on the basis of what has been presented to the Senate here. If anybody feels very strongly about anything, lobby distinguished senators to canvass for your position rather than blackmail leadership, because my telephone line and that of the Honorable Speaker were published. In one day, I received over 900 SMS messages saying we have manipulated this. We didn't. We will do what is right. We have our procedures, and lobbying is part of democracy.
All right, Artuno, we'll come back to the chat this morning. Your take on this.
Well, all I have to say about this is that it's important that we're seeing responsiveness by hook or by crook, whether they want to admit it or they don't want to admit it. They are listening because they've been compelled to listen. Vox populi, vox dei, like I said yesterday. And I have another Latin maxim to share this morning. Salus populi, suprema lex exto. The welfare of the people is the supreme law. So it is important for our leaders to keep that in mind. Anything that would regress the Nigerian democracy is reprehensible and must be rejected soundly. Now, the Senate President talked about receiving 900 text messages. It's music to my ears. Not to him, I imagine, with his phone going off constantly. But I love the fact that the Nigerian public has formed themselves now into a pressure group, the ultimate pressure group. And I resent any kind of allegation, which I'm not saying that the Senate President or the President of the Senate, as it likes to be called, I'm not saying that's what he said, but any type of sort of resentment expressed by some of our leaders that we often hear towards people trying to hold them accountable, for me, is ridiculous. That is exactly what the people are supposed to do. We're not to sit and be quiet for 4 years and only wheel us out to vote for you come election time. It's an ongoing process, and I'm excited to see that process being deepened every day.
Dr. Vati?
Anyway, my standard response in a situation like this is to stress the importance of public opinion. And our public opinion is an important component of the democratic process and also of the governance process. And what we have seen, either in the case of the Petroleum Industry Bill or the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, is the case of public opinion, as an expression of power on the part of the people. And we saw that also with regard to the media bills that we're told have now been suspended. We discussed that yesterday. And the Senate President and other members of his team should not be afraid of public opinion, because that is what democracy is all about. I thought it was a bit, harsh in the commentaries that he has made. First, he said his privacy was invaded because some people published his phone number and that of the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Well, the people who sent him 900 text messages, I imagine that they were not begging him for money or discussing his private affairs. They must have been discussing the controversial Electoral Act Amendment Bill and drawing his attention to it. So in that regard, I don't think he can claim that it was an invasion of his privacy. What is that rule again? Voluntary non-fit injuria. If you don't like heat, don't go near the kitchen. Yeah. And as the leader of the Senate, yes, he should be interested in what the people are saying. And in any case, he himself said anybody who has any issues with the Electoral Act Amendment Bill should approach his or her representative in the National Assembly who can come and be part of that process and represent the people. And I imagine that he wouldn't be, as Senate President, the only person who received text messages. I read the front page story of This Day today, and we've been given the assurance by the Senate President himself and by other members of the National Assembly that the process will be accountable, will be transparent and accountable, and that there should be no fears expressed about the controversial Section 52, Clause 52, 1 to 3 of the proposed electoral bill. And that is the section of the law, of the proposed law that deals with the electronic transmission of results. And we understand that various caucuses from different zones have been meeting since yesterday. So we hope, of course, that that use of technology that was in the original document, which the Senate President insists has not been tampered with, will be retained. Because elsewhere in the world, technology is used, to ensure transparency. And there is nothing wrong in also using it here. The transmission of results haven't been a major issue, in the last 2019 general election. I would have loved the situation, however, whereby that debate, that clause-by-clause consideration in the House of Reps and the Senate today will be televised live.
It's going to be televised.
So that Nigerians can see how each senator or member of the House of Reps is making contribution. So that we will know those who are against the people and where they stand on the key issues that have been brought to the fore. Not just electronic transmission of results, there's also the issue about campaign finance. You need 15 billion, we're told, to be a president of Nigeria, 5 billion to be a governor. Well, let them debate it and tell us whether this is a case of rising inflation, even for election purposes. But we would like to see who says what, who votes in what particular manner.
And most importantly, I think the greatest winners in this are the people. And the people must think that they can have a good democracy before they have a good democracy and demand for it. And in that spirit, I remember the words of René Descartes that says, cogito ergo sum. I think before I am. So the people must think that they must have good democracy before they have it. And people are beginning to think like that. And that's why you're getting a lot of text messages out, people commenting on national issues. Really, most importantly, I think this morning is an ode to the people.
Je pense ce que je suis.
Yeah.
I think, therefore, I am.
Yes. C'est très bon. That's all on News Headline. We take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rotus, Odiri, Adesu Amora, Aaron Akeriola to give us updates on Africa business, COVID-19, sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our trustworthy Rotus Odiri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. We begin with agriculture. There has been some suspected fraud in the federal government's program for agriculture subsidies for farmers. So here's what's going on. The federal government has made a claim that about 6 million farmers have been registered to receive subsidies. In fact, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agriculture, Andrew Kwasari, made the claim that about 6 million of these farmers have been registered. A number of the players in the sector are refuting this claim, from the National President of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Kabir Ibrahim, the Lagos State Chairman, Chief Femi Oke, Bauchi State Chairman Mahmood Yakubu, the Chairman of the Cotton Farmers Association, Suleiman Akande. So here's the thing, a farmer wants to buy a fertilizer to fertilize their crops. Fertilizer costs what? 6,000 to 7,000 naira. Federal government makes a deposit of about 2,000 naira into that farmer's account, essentially giving some room, reducing the cost of that fertilizer to about 4,000 naira. That's just an example. President Buhari put together a committee comprising of the Auditor General of the nation, the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Agriculture, Central Bank of Nigeria. That committee was supposed to come up with this register, and with the sources I've spoken to, the central bank was supposed to sign off on a validated list. Unfortunately, according to the sources I've spoken to, the ministry has bypassed that list and was getting ready to make a payment, subsidy payment, based on this registry, this list of farmers that has not been validated. I also understand from sources I've spoken with that the EFCC is involved and is investigating this. Now, another thing I need to point out is that back on June the 17th, the Minister of Agriculture, Sabo Nanono, at the 4th meeting of the National Council on Agriculture and Rural Development, June 17th, said the government had created an online portal, and in that portal, they were going to register. Initially, it was 2.4 million farmers, but they said they were encouraged by what they were seeing, and they're going to push it up to 10 million. And then you've got Senior Special Assistant to the President of Agriculture, Andrew Kwasari, saying that it's now at 6 million. That online portal was supposed to capture bio data, geographical data for the farmers, farming valuations, output, and so on and so forth. So it's all pretty troubling. I have to remind you about this. We've kind of seen this before, right? Where portals are created, subsidy unfortunately doesn't go to who it's supposed to go to. The Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Kojiwela, just 2 days ago was talking to the Atlantic Council, their geo-economic group, and they asked about, I think it was in this day newspaper yesterday, about subsidies, the auditing programs that went through under President Jonathan for fuel subsidies back then. So we're seeing this rear its head again in the agriculture sector. It's pretty troubling, but again, according to sources that I've spoken with, the EFCC is investigating this. Quickly move to maritime, the maritime sector. President Buhari has said that approximately about 26.3 billion naira or so a year is being lost to piracy, sea crimes, and he was represented by Vice President Yemi Osibanjo at the launch of Operation Falcon Eye Assignment. And what this is supposed to be is a surveillance technology that is supposed to be aligned across the, or rather survey the coastal waters of Nigeria to try to reduce crime. According to Chief of Naval Staff Vice Admiral Awal Gambo, he says that in fact they've already recovered some, about $9 million worth of foreign rice that's been smuggled through our waters. Also made some arrests as well in that regard, and they're saying that this surveillance facility is what is going to hopefully be a game changer in order to reduce crime. So of course, the natural next question will be, if surveillance tech is working in maritime, what about surveillance tech at the borders? The governor of Kaduna State has just been, that's Governor El-Rufai, has just been under siege with banditry and so on. You remember at a forum covered by Arise News, he said use drones, use technology to survey schools and so on to reduce banditry that's going on there. So if this is working in maritime, why can't it work elsewhere? So again, but that figure, 26.3 billion naira a year being lost to maritime piracy, is supposed to be hopefully reduced with this Operation Falcon Eye Assignment. Finally, the digital rights issues with respect to what's been going on with Nigeria and Twitter and India. It came up yesterday in Geneva at United Nations Human Rights Office. Let's quickly hear from Peggy Hicks, who is the Director of Thematic Engagements at the UN.
So we have the same rights online as offline. But when we look at the online landscape and you see a digital world that is unwelcoming and frequently unsafe for people trying to exercise their rights, You also see a host of government and company responses that risk making the situation worse. Recent developments in countries including, for example, among many others, India, Nigeria, the UK, the US, and Vietnam have spotlighted these issues and will be influential in how our online space evolves. We want to emphasize that we have the same right.
Hello, Rutus, please continue. Please go ahead.
President Buhari has also approved new board members of the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. This follows the expiration of the tenure of the previous board members, and they are represented by each geopolitical zone. So finally, our final bit of news of the President Buhari appointed new members to the NSIA, the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. That's our African business update.
Okay, Rotus, the Falcon Eye project. How is this Falcon Eye project different from the Deep Blue project? You know, earlier on this program, we talked about that Deep Blue project, which is about maritime security. And of course, you know, you've outlined the challenges: illegal fishing in our waters, oil theft, piracy, and it's not even just Nigeria that is affected. It's all the 17 countries in the Gulf of Guinea, from Senegal to Angola, and Nigeria just happens to be especially disadvantaged in terms of security. And since the beginning of this year, the authorities have been talking about, you know, deploying more technology to ensure maritime security. So the question is, Falcon Eye project, yes, the Navy. I thought the Deep Blue project is supposed to involve Navy and other agencies, and particularly the Nigerian Maritime and Security Administration Agency, that is NIMASA. I've not heard of the role of NIMASA in this particular case. So if that Falcon Eye project is going to have about 4 centers, what is the role also of NIMASA, which seems to have a primary responsibility for maritime security? That's one. 2, the register, the farmers register. Well, I'm surprised that this has become controversial, because many years ago, the Federal Ministry of Agric and Rural Development in fact, opened a portal and told the farmers they could come and register. And under the former Minister of Agriculture, Akinwumi Adesina, there was registration for projects like e-wallet and other initiatives, you know, at the time that he was minister. Is it that the register that was prepared at that time no longer exists? That's one question. The second question is that we're told that the new register that is coming up now is the personal project of the current special advisor on agriculture. You mentioned his name, Kwasari. So how is that a personal project in the presidency? To what extent is the Federal Ministry of Agriculture involved? Because I really, you know, don't get what the confusion is all about. And then the All Farmers Association, AFAN, is protesting. The president is saying, the president of that association is saying that he is not aware of any new attempt to, you know, put up a register, an e-portal for farmers registration. And some of the chairmen of the various state branches of that association also claim that they are not aware of whatever the special assistant on agriculture is doing. Now, why should there be so much confusion with regard to preparing subsidy, you know, a platform to give subsidy to farmers? Something that you would think that on the surface of it, you know, is a very good initiative, because if you know the farmers and you support the farmers, all of that will fit into the argument of the administration about ensuring food security and ensuring that Nigeria is self-sufficient, and that, you know, the crisis that we face in the agri sector is data-driven in terms of the steps taken by the government. But even more importantly, the president of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria made the point that, look, the challenge is not one of registration. The challenge is providing security. And that's the kind of conversation we expect that the agents of government will be having with these farmers. And also, do they have issues about foreign exchange, about access to credit? These are the kinds of conversations we want to hear, not that there is a register that nobody is aware of, and over register, you know, you are talking about the EFCC getting involved. It looks so untidy.
I mean, everything looks very, very
Well said,
untidy.
Doctor, well said.
I mean, you want to react, or let me just have a quick go at it. The truth has to be said. See, Rosus, I don't know when people don't want to tell the truth, they make everything look very nebulous. You don't need a grand registration for farmers in this country. You have pocket associations, go through those associations. It's as simple as that. Have a direct database. You can store the database in the cloud. You should have that database, which anybody can go, and once they register through the portal, or any portal, then it goes to the database. Or collect the database of the Farmers Union. They are Farmers Union. Farmers organize themselves. I mean, there's the Agbekoya. We know the Agbekoya. We know various farmer unions across the country. So just go through there, and to be able to give it, but when you want to shroud things in secrecy, it becomes nebulous. You start asking for data that don't exist. Concerning going back to dispensing things for farmers, let us use blockchain technology. If you put it on blockchain, Rotus, we'll know which farmer has been given XYZ. Even if fertilizer dispensing fertilizers to farmers, use blockchain technology so that there's a blockchain that everybody can see, and it's clear and it's free from any sort of controversy. If you want to truly do something, you do it. If you don't want to do it, you find an excuse. We're beginning to see these excuses, and it's not right, because there are problems that are blowing back on all of us. Food insecurity is staring at us in the face. There's insecurity, farmers can't go to the farm. What is happening? Food prices are increasing every day. It's a logistical nightmare. Apart from that, people can't move food from the production centers to the towns where they are needed. That's why you see post-harvest losses is still over 50% in this country. Isn't it shocking to you, Rotus, that post-harvest losses is over 50% and we have food inflation? Isn't it shocking? Right. Tomatoes and other fruit rot away in the farms.
There's also the Anchor Borrowers Program, it must be said, and the registration process that's been going on already through that. So again, key, according to sources I spoke with, Central Bank was supposed to sign off on this list, and that never happened. So that's part of what's going on in this situation.
The Special Assistant on Agriculture, the Mr. Kasari, whom you mentioned, he says that the farmers that are complaining are political farmers. That seems to be a new category in Nigeria.
Well, on agriculture, I always have to stress the fact that our food that we eat here is not deemed for consumption elsewhere, not in the EU, not in the US, not in the UK. It's rejected as not being up to par. And that is what we are chowing down on here in Nigeria. I have to continue to stress that point. We need to think about that. But to your story about the United Nations Human Rights Office continuing to frame the Twitter ban as a human rights issue, it's not about who likes who, or who took whose tweet down, or who agrees or who does not agree. But access is a human rights issue, as people have argued, obviously with limited success because the Twitter ban is still in place. But do you think this kind of international pressure will actually have any bearing on the situation?
I sure hope it does, Tundu. I mean, that's as high as you can go with the United Nations Office of Human Rights. Even on the Global Business Report, we spoke with private sector members not too long ago, and I will have a report on that later today. So we hope that the continued conversation, like what we're having now, what's going on in various organizations, will and the government is supposed to be still talking to Twitter, but as you said, no updates yet. But hopefully this does put the pressure and we get some breakthrough sooner or later.
I mean, Rotus, real quickly, please. Can any stat agency bring out a comprehensive report on the level of job cuts associated with the Twitter ban? Because there's a massive job cut going on. I was hearing a couple of companies that had online desk sacking their workers on Drove. The massive job cuts associated with the Twitter ban. The impact also of Twitter ban on payroll taxes. I think we should do reports on that and put it out there so that the world will see what is happening in Rotus. All right, we need
well
to
said. Yeah, remember when initially we talked about this a week or two ago. It was about as far as jobs, call centers by certain companies, banks, and so on for social media customer service. So if there's an impact, it will be on those specific people who have been hired to address customer issues on social media, and then maybe a few other pockets here and there. But it would definitely help to have data on that.
Thank you so much, Rotus. Appreciate you for your time. We'll go to Adesua this morning. Adesua, great to have you.
Thank you, Rufai. Good morning, Tundu, and good morning, Dr. Abachi. Let's begin with the statistics like we normally do here on the COVID-19 update. Globally, there have been well over 188 million cases, at least 4 million deaths, and 3.4 billion doses of vaccines administered. But the World Health Organization yesterday released its weekly epidemiological update, and it says that deaths have climbed, global deaths from the coronavirus have climbed last week after 9 straight weeks of decline, recording 55,000 lives lost, and that's a 3% increase from the week before that. While infections rose 10% last week to nearly 3 million, with the highest numbers recorded in Brazil, India, Indonesia, and Britain. The World Health Organization says this reversal has been attributed to low vaccination rates, the relaxation of mask rules and other precautions, and the swift spread of the more contagious Delta variant that has now been detected in more than 111 countries. Well, here in Nigeria, 48 new cases were recorded in the last 24 hours. No data came in for Lagos State for the day. Ondo State in the southwest region of the country posted the most infections with 14 new cases. Staying in Nigeria, the management of one of its foremost universities has ordered students to vacate hostels on campus indefinitely over fears of COVID-19. The management of the University of Lagos, otherwise known as UNILAG, after an emergency Senate meeting yesterday, says it took the decision to avoid escalation of COVID cases after a rise in the number of students presented with flu-like symptoms similar to the COVID-19 virus at the university's medical center. Now, a statement by the school management says students who have tested positive are being treated and contact tracing is in place. Before now, a statement on the university's website reveals that its medical center had actually raised an alarm, informing the school community about what appears to be the start of a potential third wave. All students have been given till noon today to vacate the hostels, and classes are to go virtual for the rest of the semester. Away from Nigeria, the Dutch government in Netherlands is asking people to work from home as it reimposed some coronavirus lockdown measures weeks after lifting most of its restriction measures. This comes as infections skyrocketed by more than 500% in the last week, with more than 50,000 people testing positive. Prime Minister Mark Rutte had only this week actually, apologized for lifting restrictions at the end of June. He describes it as an error in judgment. Netherlands has only fully vaccinated about 46% of its adult population. Finally, in the US, the infection curve is rising again after months of decline, with numbers of cases doubling over the past 3 weeks. This is largely blamed on the fast-spreading Delta variant, lagging vaccination rates, and the 4th of July gatherings. But death links to the virus are still on a downward trend trajectory to around 260 deaths a day. This is definitely a setback for the President Biden administration, hoping to curb and control the pandemic. And of course, it comes at a time when life in much of the US has started to return to near normal. According to the CDC data, the highest rates of infections are in states with the lowest vaccination rates, such as Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi.
Well, in the US, the US has been able to administer up to about 67% of the adult population, with vaccines, with at least 1 dose. And over 44% have taken 2 doses. But complacency will seem to have set in many states in the United States. You've mentioned some of them. There are 15 states in total where we've seen a very sharp rise in the reproduction rate, up to about 24,000 per day in some of the states. But whereas the infection rate is going up, the death rate is not rising as you would have expected. But the challenge, of course, is to get the people to get vaccinated. And that's where particularly the challenge is for the United States. And if you look at many of those states, the 5 that are most affected, including Mississippi and Missouri, you see that these are states, and Arkansas, you mentioned Arkansas, these are states with a higher rate of vaccine hesitancy. As for Netherlands, yes, maybe there are lessons that we can learn from the Netherlands. Yes, end of June, there was the lifting of restrictions. In the first week of July, there was a festival in a place called Utrecht in the Netherlands, attended by about 20,000 people. Out of the 20,000, people that attended that festival, over 1,000 of them are said to have been infected. And now, acting Prime Minister Mark Rutte has had to impose fresh restrictions, particularly in the catering sector, bars and restaurants, which are said to be more responsible for the upsurge in the infection rate. And the people most affected are young people between the ages of 18 and 24. And these were young people who had refused to take the vaccine. Now, University of Lagos, yes, by noon today, the students have been asked to vacate the hostels. What was discovered at the health center, because when the school resumed in May, when physical classes resumed in May, the university had set up a vaccination center. And it was that has given them the opportunity to note the increase in the number of persons who were infected. And now the students have been asked to vacate the hostels. Some parents are protesting that perhaps that's not the best way to go about it. But I think it's better for the university to err on the side of caution. And what the university has decided to do is to start classes virtually from the 26th of this month. Finally, I wanted to draw your attention to the pushback from those countries who have adopted mix and match of vaccines. You know, the other day we were discussing Thailand. Now, Thailand has said no. From studies available, they have seen that mixing the Sinovac with the Pfizer vaccine is in the best interest of their people, because in Thailand, we've seen, the numbers going up drastically. Also, Canadian health authorities have also said no. They are going to combine the vaccines, the adenoid vaccine and the messenger RNA vaccine, and even encourage people to take booster vaccines. The good news about that is that Sumewa, the chief scientist of the WHO, has edited what she said originally, because she was saying this is not data-driven, this is dangerous, it could result in chaos. She's now saying that, well, she had individuals in mind who could abuse this mix and match, not necessarily public health authorities. So we're likely to see, going forward, more countries perhaps adopting the mix and match method. But for us here in Nigeria, the big thing remains taking the necessary precautions.
Yeah, and taking the jabs, most importantly. Please go out there. I've got my shot. Go out there, get your shots. It's safe. People take it, and it gives you that level of protection. But for me, one step further, I wanted to say as regards this mixing and matching of vaccine is, and I'm speaking as a scientist, I have a degree in science. It has to be said, when you don't have enough empirical studies and things, it's not a good approach to say, let's go this way. And I'll give you instances. Most of the peer review they have done are for side effects of one vaccine on the people. And you're seeing the numbers come out. You're seeing people coming out say, oh, I had this side effect, I had that side effect. We do not know, and enough study have not been done as regards the impact of mixing the adeno vaccines and other forms of vaccines together in people's body. We do not have enough facts on that. I know it's easy for us to say because, yeah, we need to bolster ourselves, we need to get the shot, the efficacy of it can only last only 6 months or thereabout, but we have not done enough peer review as regards that. And increasingly, we are having new symptoms as a result of the use of those vaccines. I mean, the other day, we're talking about some level of paralysis from people taking vaccines and the likes. So we should be careful. If possible, they can work more on the booster jabs. I mean, Pfizer is working on that booster jab already. Other people too can start work on the booster jab. People that have taken the Pfizer, they could probably just take a Pfizer booster jab. But I know in the chaos and everything COVID-19 brings, people want to mix and match. Let's be careful. Yeah, the World Health Organization has given it the all clear, but I'll tell you, nobody did know that we're going to see these cases, of adverse reactions to the vaccine before people started taking the vaccine. And that's how you build peer review and empirical studies. So peer reviews goes a long while.
I think the fascinating thing about this pandemic is that we learn every day. We learn almost, at the snap of the fingers. Opinions will be divided. And of course, the science community feet will be put to the fire every time. There are those who have said, booster jabs like you're speaking of are actually not necessary at the moment. We've seen top scientists from the US, we've seen top scientists from the WHO say, at the moment, there are no cause for a third jab, but there are countries who have said we have seen cases, breakthrough infections, that is infections in those who have been fully vaccinated with 2 jabs. They are still coming down, they are still infected with this virus. However, we should point out that the rise in infections in those places or in people who have been fully vaccinated is not what we're seeing previous to vaccination. So there's a break in COVID deaths like the US. It's a good example of life experience. This is out of trials now. This is real life experience. Those who have been vaccinated, we are seeing increase in infections, but low death rates, 260 a day in the US compared to where they were coming from, where you had at least sometimes 250,000 deaths. So the vaccines are working. Opinions will be divided, Rufai, and the science community will continue to work hard ahead of all of this.
Well, I'm not fascinated at all at Deswa. I find it also tedious. I just want this to be over. This uninvited intruder should just go away. Yes. But what I wanted to say about it, just to buttress your point about how things change, in the blink of an eye, really, Indonesia has now emerged as, Asia's COVID-19 epicenter, no longer India. It continues to ravage whole communities. Now they've had to shut down Bali and Java, which arguably they ought to have done before. So this is the argument against complacency and lifting COVID restrictions prematurely. It's all just so tedious.
I know.
Well, just a footnote on the mix and match.
Yes.
The health authorities in Canada are insisting, which is the basis for their insistence, that, look, they've taken the decision to mix and match going forward based on studies, reviews that have been carried out in Germany and also in Oxford. And that the conclusion by the scientists is that, mixing and matching is safe. And we're likely to see more countries in Europe also going in that direction. But as you said, this pandemic, we keep learning new things every day, and it remains a major challenge for scientists all over the world.
All right. Thank you so much, Adesua.
Thank you, guys.
As always.